Hey everyone, I'm Mariana, and today I am ranking the entire Halloween franchise. I am so excited to be talking about these movies. I finally marathoned all of them. I have a newfound appreciation for this franchise as a whole, and I have some hot takes, so get ready. A few things before we get started. First of all, everything I watched was a theatrical cut. I did not watch any director's cuts, producer's cuts, none of that. I know there are lots of strong opinions about different cuts for some of these movies, but for this first complete watch through, because until this marathon, the only Halloween movies I've seen were the original Halloween and the new trilogy. I wanted to experience these movies for the first time, just as the audiences experienced them in theaters. Second, I watched them in order of release because the timelines for this franchise are insane. I found this graphic online that someone made, and as soon as I saw it, I knew it was just going to be easier to watch them chronologically. But do let me know what your favorite Halloween timeline is in the comments below. And third, I have the most perfect coffee pairing for this video, brought to you by today's lovely sponsor, Trade Coffee. Let me introduce you to Season of the Witch by Sightseer, and when you see where I'm ranking this movie, you will understand why this deliciously rich and slightly chocolatey medium dark roast just had to be featured in this video. I have been getting my coffee through Trade, paying for the subscription myself, for almost 2 years now, and I love their selection. I have my favorite roasters like Sightseer that I order from all the time, but even when I'm feeling adventurous, I know that with Trade, my coffee is always freshly roasted and full of flavor and aroma. No matter what your preferred brewing method is, they will match you with coffee that's perfect for your taste based on your preferences, so your daily cup of coffee at home is actually always your best cup of coffee. They have never disappointed me, and what's also great is that Trade Coffee is ethically sourced and comes from independent roasters around the country before it's delivered right to your door on a flexible subscription schedule of your choice. Now, of course, I have a special offer so you can try it for yourself. Right now, when you use my link, drinktrade.com/impressionblend, you will get a free bag of coffee with any subscription. Again, that's drinktrade.com/impressionblend to get your first bag free with any subscription. It's that simple. Follow my link, choose a delivery schedule that works for you, and enjoy some delicious coffee on the house that could potentially be your new favorite blend. And thank you so much to Trade Coffee for sponsoring this video. But let's get into this ranking, and of course, I hope to see your rankings in the comments below. I know we all have strong opinions, so let's be nice to each other. But I am going to start with a bang here because my least favorite film in this entire franchise is Halloween 2007, aka Rob Zombie's Halloween. I'm sorry, Rob Zombie fans, but I cannot stand this movie, and I genuinely don't ever want to see it again. I normally can't stand Rob Zombie movies to begin with, and that opening scene alone with the typical traditionally trashy dialogue that his movies are famous for had me considering turning this movie off. It's not like it got better either. I absolutely hated all of these characters, including Laurie, especially Laurie, and she's the character I'm supposed to be rooting for. She's the final girl, but I found this version of her very annoying and frustrating and just unlikable. Also, I just don't care about Michael's bad childhood. I don't need an origin story for Michael Myers. And maybe if this backstory was a little bit more interesting and less cliche, I would feel differently, but as is, I hated all of these characters. I did not like the writing, particularly I hated the terrible dialogue. The mask does look cool in this movie, I have to admit, and Malcolm McDowell's Dr. Loomis is the only real redeeming thing about this movie for me, but he's not even in it that much, so it doesn't really help. It also doesn't help that this is the second longest entry in this franchise. This felt like a challenge to get through for me, and I cannot say that it was worth it. I know some people enjoy this one, but I just don't get it at all. Rob Zombie's Halloween has to be one of the most pointless remakes out there. At number 12, I have what is by many regarded as the worst entry in the franchise, and that is Halloween Resurrection. Look, this movie is ridiculous in every way, I agree, and technically speaking, as far as the filmmaking goes, this is the worst Halloween film. But the thing is, it crosses over into the so bad it's good territory for me. I laughed so much while watching this movie. Overall though, the acting is terrible, the writing is terrible, even by early 2000s slasher sequel standards. Visually, it's very bland. I can't really remember any exciting or memorable kills in it. The mask is also one of my least favorites. Buster Rhymes karate kicks Michael Myers. Trick or treat, motherfucker. This movie is absurd. Also, let's not even talk about the way Laurie Strode was treated here, what they did to her character, and that scene between her and Michael. What even was that? I can't really find any positives here, and the idea itself is interesting. Having it be a reality show live stream of these people spending the night at the Myers house, it's very fitting for the early 2000s, and I think it had potential conceptually, but it absolutely does not work. It fails spectacularly to the point where I find it entertaining how bad this movie is, which is why it's not dead last on this list. Let me put it this way, even though I am rating it lower, if my choices were to rewatch Rob Zombie's Halloween or rewatch Halloween Resurrection, what hell is this? I would rewatch Halloween Resurrection in a heartbeat any day of the week. At number 11, I have Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. This was the biggest disappointment of the franchise for me because I actually really enjoyed Halloween 4. You'll see later how I rank that one. And so I was excited to see where the story was going to go from there. Turns out the answer is nowhere good. I was genuinely baffled how they messed it up so badly. Why was this movie so boring and so bad? Why was this some of the worst acting in the franchise? Why was Tina the most annoying character of the Halloween movies? She's easily my least favorite character in the entire franchise. Why does Michael Myers suddenly have a mansion? Why is Loomis yelling all the time? Why are the cops so stupid? I had so many questions for this movie, but most importantly, this was a massive step down from Halloween 4 in every way. I am not kidding. Even the score was disappointing this time around, and the overall vibes were not there because everything just looks like summer. This is not what Halloween looks like in Illinois. People are going skinny dipping on Halloween in Illinois. Are you kidding me? I am just confused. What happened here? How do you fail so badly after a solid Halloween entry that was Halloween 4? I actually initially rated this a 3 out of 10, which is already not a good rating, but I had to go back and lower my rating to a 2 out of 10 because I realized I kind of hate this movie. It just felt very uninspired to me, typical 80s slasher cringe, and not in a fun way. Number 10, Evil Doesn't Die, It Changes Shape. I completely agree because I refuse to accept Halloween Ends as the ending to this franchise. I was hoping this would grow on me on this rewatch because I initially didn't like it when I saw it back in theaters, but unfortunately my opinion has not changed and I still really don't like it. Here are some positives for you. The score was great and the third act, particularly the culmination of events, the finale of all of this, you know what I'm talking about, was actually really well done. Everything else was just not for me, and I am baffled why the choices that they made were actually made. Most of this movie was about Corey. Who's Corey? Nobody cares. Some people apparently care. I did not care. I did not need a new character to be introduced here. And as soon as I was slightly warming up to the idea of this movie being about Corey, they completely wasted everything they were building up with him. Also, it really pissed me off that Laurie and her PTSD was being treated as a joke. She was essentially the comic relief of this movie, and I cannot understand this decision. Everyone around her was mad at her because apparently she was paranoid and drew too much attention to herself, and that is the reason the people that are dead are dead. Even her granddaughter is mad at her for this same reason, even though Laurie's supposed paranoia is the only reason Allison is even alive. But you know what? Who cares, right? They also inexplicably added a bunch of cheap jump scares to this movie. I have no idea why. Sure, there were jump scares in previous Halloween films, but this is on another level. I don't know why they decided to go for that approach. I'm just, like I said, I'm baffled by the decisions that were made when making Halloween Ends. And yeah, since evil just changes shape, I'm going to be waiting for the next one. Thank you. Number 9 for me is Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers, the 6th movie in the franchise. This is a weird one to talk about because this doesn't really feel like a complete movie to me. We will never see what this movie was supposed to be. The production was an absolute mess, which is actually really interesting to read about. If you're curious, I recommend it, but it resulted in a very messy movie. However, as you can see by this ranking, I actually found some positives here. There are some memorable kills in here, even if they are a little bit over the top. I say a little bit, a lot over the top. And I do like the druid cult stuff, okay? I like it. I like supernatural things. I like cults. And this was interesting to me. I wish there was more druid cult stuff. Michael Myers is scarier than he has been in a while, and his mask finally looks good again. The seasonal vibes are back, thank you for that. And also Paul Rudd's performance, which isn't great, but it's hilarious, okay? I was entertained. 90s, Paul Rudd's hilarious performance, cult stuff. I was entertained by this movie. Also, Marianne Hagen as Kara Strode, the final girl for Halloween 6. I liked her. I actually wish we had more movies with her. But all that being said, we all know this is not a good movie. Not a single narrative thread here is brought to a full closure. The editing is quite bizarre. The entire movie feels rushed and choppy. It's a structural mess. Loomis as a character is a mess. Unfortunately, the actor tragically died, so they weren't able to fix his character. It is what it is, and most of the characters in this movie are so stupid. It's kind of infuriating, but also a little bit unintentionally hilarious. Oddly enough, though, this is the movie where I'm the most interested in an alternative cut, the producer's cut in this case, because I think this story has potential. I think this could have been a good film, and I'm very curious what the original vision was. Even though I did not think this one was good, I am oddly fascinated by it, so let me know what you think about the producer's cut compared to the theatrical cut. At number 8, I have Halloween Kills. Evil dies tonight, except it doesn't because Halloween Ends exists. I actually enjoyed this movie a little bit more on the rewatch, just a little bit because I still have plenty of issues with it. But I decided I like it. Kind of. From this point on in the video, we are getting into the Halloween movies I actually at least like. Halloween Kills lives up to its title because it is absolutely brutal, and that's why a lot of people love it. The variety of kills here and the way they're shot, it's impressive. I personally don't really understand the outrage that Michael doesn't kill with a knife here as much as people expect him to. Michael spends this entire franchise killing people in so many different and creative ways. He does not discriminate against weapons. He will use whatever he has at hand. So this isn't new, and that criticism just surprises me. Some of this writing, though, a lot of this writing, if I'm being honest, the characters, the dialogue, how heavy-handed it is, it's just not amazing, and that's what holds this movie back for me. I do like the way they were tying this movie into the rest of the franchise with bringing characters in and with various references without it feeling overbearing, but once again, they could not write it into a compelling story, and once you get past all of the carnage, there just isn't that much left there. I don't know. On one hand, it has some iconic kills and some amazingly done, terrifying shots, and to be fair, gruesome kills are a big reason why people like slashers to begin with, and seeing these kills done creatively is a plus. So I do understand why some people love this film and consider it one of the best in the franchise, but for my taste personally, I just needed more from the writing and the characters. I don't even have that much to say about it. Overall, it's generally okay, and it is elevated by the carnage and the way it's shot and the visuals and the Michael mask and all of that looking great. But as a movie, as a story, as a narrative, it's, it is what it is. It's not amazing. All right, are you ready for this? Because at number 7, I have Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. An underrated movie, if you ask me. Didn't think there would come a day where I would have to somewhat defend a Rob Zombie film, but here we are. I think this movie is nowhere near the worst of the franchise, as some people say, and this is actually the first Rob Zombie film that I could say I liked. Hear me out on this one. To me, this is an improvement on the 2007 Halloween in almost every way. Yes, the white horse and dream mom stuff is ridiculous. We did not need it, at least not the way it was done here. I could have done completely without it. Michael wandering around without his mask wasn't my favorite thing either. I just don't think it makes sense here. It doesn't feel right. And some of that Rob Zombie dialogue is still horrendous, even though I don't think it's anywhere near as bad as it is in Halloween 2007. Also, the Dr. Loomis character assassination is absolutely unforgivable. Loomis is one of my favorite characters of this entire franchise, if not the favorite. So that was something that I found really upsetting just as a fan. However, the final girl PTSD angle actually worked for me, as depressing as it was. It makes sense, and while it's not fun to watch, I appreciated this take on the character, and Laurie as a character was more compelling to me than she was in the previous film. There are some really heartbreaking scenes in this film, truly emotional scenes that I did not expect, and it is an appropriately brutal film with an ending that goes really hard. That was, once again, unexpected. I was surprised by how much I enjoyed this movie. Plus, the mask is great. I know some people don't like the mask, but I do. To me, even though there are plenty of negatives to complain about, and I understand the criticisms, this movie works, and the positives do outweigh the negatives. Now, I get it. It's a very different take. It's a movie about Laurie's PTSD, and it is depressing as hell. I get it if that's not what you want to see, and you're a fan of a more classic take on a final girl trope. But what surprises me are people who enjoy Rob Zombie's Halloween and then think this movie is terrible. I'm just curious, what kind of sequel to that movie did people expect? Because the way I see it, this was the only way this could have continued. Like I said, underrated movie. Okay, fandom, don't come for me for this, but for number 6, I am following up Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 with actual Halloween 2. This movie was fine. It was good. I liked it, but I don't really get the hype when people say that this is one of the best sequels. I don't have such strong feelings about it overall. Halloween 2 is mostly really slow. It's not great. It's not terrible. And even though the story itself has more to offer than the first movie, if we just look at the story outside of how it was portrayed on screen, somehow Halloween 2 still feels like a lot of wasted potential. The characters here are very forgettable. Laurie is not really used all that much, and her wig is terrible. I was very distracted by it. Loomis was consistently making me laugh, and he was the most entertaining part of this movie. Mostly Halloween 2 really just felt like a missed opportunity to me because it had the perfect setup for a single location slasher. And I feel like it kind of wasted it, even though there were some really nasty kills that were really memorable, some of the best in the franchise. Once again, because Laurie was underused, it all feels like we're just waiting for them to face off again, Laurie and Michael Myers. Maybe that's what made it feel so slow for me, but overall, it was fine. It does pick up though eventually in the third act, and when that happens, it's very exciting. The ending is great, and I understand why some people choose to just see it as the one crazy violent night duology with original Halloween and Halloween 2 and just stop it there. That makes sense to me, but it's just such a step down from the original, and like I said, a lot of wasted potential here. All right, we are in the top 5 now, and this top 5 is where we really step things up. I am a big fan of all 5 of these movies, and I would rewatch any of them in a heartbeat. And at number 5, I have Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. Terrible mask, but a surprisingly good movie. I was thoroughly entertained by this film, despite any flaws that it might have. And I would say that the 2.8 average rating on Letterboxd is insanely low. I mean, sure, the mask does look goofy and a lot of people make fun of it, but I got used to it. I accepted that it was not a good mask and I moved on. There are some ridiculous bits here and there, but honestly, I was expecting so much worse, and this was actually good. The kills are great. Jesus ain't got nothing to do with this place. The pacing is solid. Rachel and Jamie are good enough characters to root for and to carry the rest of the franchise. The spooky vibes are really excellent. I was really enjoying that. The ending is something I absolutely loved. It is so dark. I was not expecting that. It was messed up, and I was just floored by it. Nobody spoiled that for me, thankfully, and I'm not going to say what happens, but that was probably one of my favorite endings in this entire franchise, if not the favorite. I'm still deciding which movie has the worst mob though, this one or Halloween Kills, because these rednecks with their guns are absurd, but at least they're not yelling that evil dies tonight, am I right? This is definitely an underrated sequel, and I think you guys need to revisit it if you don't like this movie, or talk to me about why you hate it so much. My theory is that people were just not happy that Laurie wasn't in this movie and the next few movies, so they just hated it for that and for the mask looking ridiculous. But if you look at it as a story, as a horror film, as a slasher, I think there's a lot to like here, and it's very underappreciated. At number 4, I have Halloween H2O. I had so much fun with this one. Of course, it's a 90s slasher. Yes, I enjoyed it. People kept saying this one is too influenced by Scream, as if that was a bad thing. I freaking love Scream. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, not just horror. So to me, that was a positive. Now, it's true, there are some very cliche horror tropes in this movie, and the film takes a while to get going. The first act is quite slow, but I was really entertained by the cast, and once things ramp up, it's just crazy slasher fun. Plus, I was just really enjoying the 90s private school vibes. But most importantly, Jamie Lee Curtis is back. We also have Josh Hartnett, Michelle Williams, Janet Leigh, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and very randomly LL Cool J. It's just a fun movie to watch on screen, and I do not know how people don't have fun with this one. I've also heard people complain about the kills, which I do not understand. They're not the most mind-blowing kills, the standout kills of this franchise, but they're still solid. They're not bad. They're pretty brutal, and Michael is once again intimidating. Intimidating Michael is good, and Laurie's PTSD finds a good balance here. It's not played for laughs like it is in Halloween Ends, and it's not as depressing as it is in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. So I think it actually brings something fresh to the franchise. Did I miss Illinois Halloween vibes, the beautiful fall and spookiness? Yes, of course I did. But there are quite a few movies in this franchise that mess it up completely. So this one being set in California didn't really bother me that much because at least it made sense why it looks like pretty much summer. Halloween H2O was just fun for me. I don't know what else to tell you. I was always going to like this movie, but even taking that into account, I was still surprised by how enjoyable and entertaining it was. For number 3, I'm going with Halloween 2018. What a solid sequel. I was actually pretty middle of the road on this one after my first viewing, but after seeing the rest of the franchise, I think it made me appreciate this one more because I definitely enjoyed it a lot more on my rewatch. I mean, what are we gonna do? Cancel Halloween? This was so much better than I remembered, and honestly, this could have been the ending. I mean, if you go from the original Halloween to this one, what was it, 40 years later, it would have been a strong finisher, especially compared to Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends. This was the ending that would have left me satisfied had they not made it into a new trilogy. Most of the first half of the film is slower than you would expect, but it gives us characters and their relationships, and it is a decently written film that actually gets you involved in what's going on rather than just waiting for the kills. Plus, the must-have spooky season vibes are back, and I am very appreciative of that. The second half, though, and especially that final act, is where this movie truly shines. There is genuine tension there. There's so many great moments. Scary Michael is back. His mask looks amazing. I love his quest to get his knife. That is one of my favorite scenes in the entire franchise. I think generally a lot of this is spot on, and I do like the direction they took with Laurie here, plus the score is fantastic. I have to point it out every time I'm enjoying it. The Dr. Loomis replacement, on the other hand, I did not like. I could have done completely without it. I don't know if they needed that, but they clearly felt like that was something that was important to the franchise. You cannot replace Loomis. They should have done something else with that. Karen's character, I cannot stand, even though I kind of understand where she's coming from. I just don't enjoy watching her, and I think she's a little bit ridiculous. I am surprised by how highly I am ranking it because, like I said, I was pretty middle of the road on this movie on my first viewing, but this was a good time. I barely have any complaints. I raised my rating from 6 to a 7 out of 10, but now that I'm thinking of it, I think this is actually an 8 out of 10 for me. Should I change it? I'm going to change it on my Letterboxd, and on screen you will see the rating. It is officially an 8 out of 10. Maybe a controversial rating. I know not everybody likes this movie, but it surprised me on a rewatch. It was a good time. Only 2 movies remain, and if you've been paying attention, you know what they are, and you might be getting nervous. Maybe not. But I actually wasn't sure which order to put these movies in because they are pretty equal in my mind. I know. Crazy take, but they are, and they are very different films, so that makes them even harder to compare. It's one of those things that just depends on my mood, how I rank them, but for today, I think I'm going to go with Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, as my runner-up to the best movie of the Halloween franchise. This movie should have been the beginning of its own anthology franchise, and I am so sad that it wasn't, because the vibe of this movie is sitting somewhere between Goosebumps and The Twilight Zone, and I would have loved to see more of these movies. This was just so much fun, and not ironic fun, not so bad it's fun, actual fun. This is a movie that is crazy in the best, most 80s way. I mentioned this about Halloween 5 and how that movie is 80s in a bad way. This is 80s in a good way. I loved how weird it was. I loved how wild it was. I loved the reveal. It was absolutely not where I expected it to go, and I thought that was so good. The masks are absolutely iconic. I want them. I would love to have a collection of these. They are so memorable. So many things about this movie are memorable. Yes, some of it is cheesy, but I can totally see this becoming a Halloween staple for me that I rewatch every year, just because it was so different and so entertaining. And if we're talking spooky season vibes, it is just Halloween defined. Not the franchise Halloween, but Halloween as a holiday, which was the idea. I so wish we got to see the Halloween anthology John Carpenter had in mind, and I am so sad that we didn't. Does Season of the Witch feel like the odd one out in this franchise? Yes, it does. But I love this movie, and if I had to rewatch a Halloween film right now after watching this entire franchise, I would pick Season of the Witch. I would. But of course, that leaves the original Halloween as my number one. The iconic slasher that started this whole thing belongs at the top of this list, and it still holds up 46 years later. We all know what it's about. On Halloween 1978, 15 years after murdering his sister, on Halloween night, Michael Myers escapes from a mental hospital and returns to the small town of Haddonfield, Illinois, to kill again the night he comes home. This movie gets better and better for me with every rewatch, if I'm being honest. It's actually oddly comforting as far as horror movies go. Also, seeing its influence in so many horror films that followed to this day makes it feel like coming back home, like Michael coming home to where it all began. Even though it's technically not the first slasher, it is the first one of its kind, and with the level of impact that's this lasting. It's entertaining, it has great spooky season vibes, very important for me, as we know. It has memorable characters, an unforgettable score, and it gave us the wonderful Jamie Lee Curtis. What else is there even to say? Simply iconic from beginning to end. I hope you enjoyed this Halloween special. I had so much fun watching these movies and ranking them for you. Definitely leave your rankings in the comments below, because I am obsessed with seeing other people's rankings of this franchise. But if you want more spooky recommendations from me, check out one of these videos next.